They looked like the ideal pair until things got out of hand. What felt like real love quickly turned into a tight hold. Each step they took was ruled by longing, and their bond fell apart fast. Can love really grow into something so dark? The awful truth might make you rethink it all. Watch this chilling story of love gone wrong. Love turns dark. In the beginning, their love felt flawless. They appeared to be a normal couple in a peaceful area, but beneath the surface, a toxic obsession was quietly growing. Their connection was deep, maybe too deep, driven by fairy passion and a mutual craving for more. As time passed, though, that love started to change into something darker and more harmful. They couldn't picture life without each other, yet their love turned into a cage. Every message, call, and minute apart felt like betrayal. Their doubts worsened, feeding jealousy and fear. What began as sweet love turned into control, lies, and emotional pressure. Soon, love and obsession became hard to tell apart. The more they clung to each other, the more they squeezed the life from what they had. Their bond wasn't just about love, it was a need. A need that was heavy, overwhelming, and in the end, it dragged them into a shadowy place they never saw coming. Dangerous desires. As their obsession deepened, so did their desires. It wasn't enough for them to simply be together. They craved control over every aspect of each other's lives. The lines between personal freedom and suffocating attachment were rapidly disappearing. Their desires weren't just emotional anymore. They began to manifest physically and mentally. They started making decisions for each other, justifying it as a sign of love. They monitored each other's every move, questioned every friendship, and began making irrational choices in an attempt to keep each other from drifting away. At first, they thought these actions were just the result of deep love. But the truth was far more sinister. What they failed to realize was that their desires had shifted from genuine affection to a dangerous need for dominance and validation. They no longer cared about mutual respect or trust. Instead, it became about owning one another, trapping each other in a cycle of destructive longing. Their obsessive need to satisfy each other's desires soon became a catalyst for a much darker, unthinkable act. Escalating obsession. As time passed, their obsession began to escalate. What started as small acts of control grew into more extreme measures. Their once thriving relationship now revolved around constant surveillance, checking each other's phones, and demanding complete transparency. If either of them strayed in the slightest, the other would react with anger and desperation, convinced that their connection was slipping away. The couple became isolated from their friends and families, as they no longer trusted anyone but each other. They began to feed off their growing paranoia, each new suspicion only fueling their obsessive need to hold on tighter. Their once peaceful lives had turned into a volatile emotional roller coaster, with every moment filled with jealousy, anger, and fear. With each passing day, the pressure mounted. They were no longer able to distinguish between what was normal and what was obsessive. As their obsession grew more intense, so did the emotional manipulation. The unhealthy behaviors spiraled out of control, and neither one knew how to stop it. What started as an intense bond now felt like a ticking time bomb, waiting to explode. The breaking point. It was inevitable. The constant pressure, the manipulation, the unchecked obsession, it all led to a breaking point. Neither of them could sustain the weight of their own emotions any longer. What had once been a passionate connection had transformed into a volatile, toxic relationship. Their world was now filled with constant arguments, threats, and ultimatums. They couldn't go a day without fighting. But it wasn't just any fight. It was a battle for control, a struggle to prove that they were the one who held power over the other. It felt like the only way to keep the relationship intact was to push boundaries further, to go to extremes, to take things further than ever before. One fateful night, after an explosive argument, something snapped. The intense emotions, anger, love, jealousy, combined with the years of obsessive behavior, led them to make a decision neither of them could have ever anticipated. In that moment of madness, they crossed a line that would change everything forever. The breaking point had been reached, and the unthinkable was now a reality. You've reached the maximum length for this conversation, but you can keep talking by starting a new chat. Unthinkable act. One fateful night, the obsession reached its breaking point. After months of emotional manipulation, jealousy, and controlling behavior, the couple found themselves on the edge of an irreversible decision. What had once been a bond forged in love and desire now turned into a dangerous and unthinkable act. They had crossed a line, one that couldn't be undone. In a moment of intense emotion, fueled by years of growing paranoia and rage, they did the unimaginable. What started as a need to control became an uncontrollable urge to act, to stop the perceived threat to their perfect but fractured world. The act was not just the culmination of their obsession, it was a desperate, final attempt to reclaim the power they had lost in each other's eyes. When it was over, they were left with the weight of their choices, unsure of how to return from the abyss they had plunged into. The unthinkable had been done, and there was no turning back. The consequences of their obsession would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The breaking point, their relationship, once full of passion, had become a battlefield. The constant control, manipulation, and fear had pushed both of them to their limits. What once felt like love now felt like a trap, and the tension had reached a point where something had to give. Neither of them could endure the emotional weight any longer, yet neither could let go. The breaking point came unexpectedly. An argument, trivial in its nature, spiraled out of control. Words were exchanged, hurtful accusations thrown, and in the heat of the moment, something inside them snapped. Their obsessive love, once a shield, had now become the weapon that tore them apart. The act they had been edging toward, driven by fear and desperation, was about to unfold. Unthinkable act. In a moment of rage and utter loss of control, they crossed the line. What had started as obsessive love became a nightmare. The unthinkable act they would commit wasn't just a product of love, it was the product of unchecked obsession. They had allowed their fears and insecurities to dominate their lives, and in that moment, their twisted attachment led them to do something no one could ever have imagined. Their minds, clouded by obsession, had justified every step, but now they were trapped by the irreversible consequences of their actions. The world would never see them the same way again, and neither would they. Consequences unfold. The aftermath was inevitable. The couple had crossed a line they could never uncross. Their lives, once full of potential, were now destroyed by the consequences of their actions. The obsession that had bound them together now separated them. As each faced the heavy price of their unthinkable act, the world outside their toxic relationship began to close in on them. Friends and family were left in disbelief, trying to comprehend how love had turned into such a tragedy. Now, they would have to face the legal and emotional consequences of the choices they made in their obsession. The love that had once brought them together now served as a haunting reminder of the darkness obsession can bring. As their obsession reached its breaking point, they were trapped in a cycle of love and control that ultimately led to the unthinkable. The consequences were irreversible, and neither of them could have foreseen how their actions would change everything. What would you do if love turned into obsession? Could you walk away, or would you become consumed by it too? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more shocking stories. And stay tuned for our next video. She uncovered the truth and risked everything